Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Hulu review, and today I'm going to be talking about Prey. Prey is an American sci-fi action movie that tells the story of Naru, a tribe woman of the Comanche Nation of the American Great Plains. She differs from most other women in her tribe in that she seeks to prove herself as a warrior capable of fighting alongside the men, but she's largely dismissed. As she goes about her training and duties, she discovers the arrival of a highly evolved creature that is set on hunting and killing anything in its path. With no one else believing her, Naru decides to head off on her own to take down the predator and protect her tribe. I was cautiously optimistic as to how good this movie would be, considering how other movies in the series turned out in the past, and it ended up being everything I wanted. After 35 long years without a movie to hold a candle to the original 1987 classic, we finally get a Predator movie that's worthy of the franchise's name. Naru, who's played by Amber Midthunder, was a solid protagonist to follow along the story with. She's desperate to prove her worth as a hunter and warrior, but her inexperience and overconfidence keep her from being recognized, so her actions put her at odds with the other members of the tribe who see her as being more of a gatherer instead of a hunter. I'm not sure how common female warriors were back then, but Midthunder does a great job at portraying Naru's capabilities. She trains all the time in preparation for future battles, which reinforces her dedication to her role, and she gradually improves her craft as she makes mistakes while hunting. She's also the only person who realizes the scale of the threat the Predator poses against her tribe. Despite her inexperience with other creatures, her repeated encounters with the Predator render her able to take it on in a way that others can't. So while there may be a bit of plot armor involved with how many brushes she has with death, it was still great to see her change into the warrior she wanted to become. Her brother Tabi is the only person in the tribe who seems to understand Naru, and even then he still has his doubts. He sees her potential and wants to support his sister as much as he can, but he's also bound by his own duties as a warrior to protect the best interests of the tribe. This conflict feels natural in its approach, and Tabi gradually changes his perspective once he sees Naru becoming more confident in herself. It was great to see the dynamic and chemistry between these two, and Tabi is a good character in his own right, especially when he holds his own in the action scenes. By far, the most interesting thing about the movie, and the whole reason to see it, is the Predator which stalks and kills any form of life it sees. Aside from it being a consistently menacing and even terrifying presence in the movie, what makes it so great is how different it is from past Predators. To me, it seemed like a much more inexperienced Predator that's just getting used to what it does best. Its cloaking camouflage doesn't always work, its tools are more antiquated, and it takes its time surveying the environment instead of going straight into killing everything. In this sense, I like how the Predator's reveal is drawn out over time. Even though most fans of the franchise have a pretty good idea of what it looks like, the slow burn aspect adds suspense to the story, which kept me invested to see what would happen once the Predator finally goes into action. It has a sense of honor as well, which is reminiscent of the first movie. It doesn't even start off going after humans, instead taking on increasingly larger animals and becoming comfortable with its surroundings. And when it does go after humans, it only uses its tools to fight them when they use tools of their own. I love how the movie uses the hierarchy of a food chain to demonstrate the dangers of the human's world, the Predator's place in it, and how much it establishes dominance in this regard. There is a lot of personality behind this Predator that makes it so much more intriguing than if it were just another killing machine. That's not to say that the action scenes aren't entertaining though. They're used sparingly up until the final act, but they're always memorable in their execution, and it's all thanks to the setting that the movie takes advantage of. It's nice to see the series go back to basics and just stick to a predator hunting its prey in Mother Nature's turf. The action does ramp up later on, which makes way for a lot of creative kills, and it's cool to see all the different gadgets and tools a predator has, but even just seeing it stalking and instilling fear in others from a distance was awesome as well. Naru illustrates how resourceful she is too as she comes to understand the predator more. She puts her tracking skills to good use, gathering clues about the creatures she's searching for, and adapts to find ways of how she can outwit the predator instead of relying on brute strength, which was a good way of showing how she became a warrior in her own way. Making things even more intense is the fact that the predator isn't the only threat that Naru has to contend with. She has to deal with animals like bears and mountain lions, and even other people like French fur traders and trappers. All of these opposing forces really help to breathe life into this movie's world. The animals are amazing in their execution. The movie does use CGI to portray most of them, but the effects actually look good. Naru's dog Sari was particularly impressive in that he wasn't animated at all. I always love when an animal like that is actually present on screen, as it helps maintain immersion, and he also turned out to be a pretty fun sidekick too. As for the traders, what I found interesting about them is how different they were in personality compared to the Comanches. When faced with a predator, the traders run for their lives, while the Comanches take it on and show off their fearlessness as warriors, even knowing that they likely face certain death. This only seems like a little thing, but it made me appreciate their culture's representation more. Speaking of which, and I can only speak on assumptions, the movie appears to be faithful in how it portrays Comanche life as it were in the 1700s, where this movie takes place. Tribespeople have designated roles, communicate in their language, and it was just fascinating to see them interact whenever the chance is given. As a side note, I have to give major props to the filmmakers, not just for including so much insight from Comanche advisors, but also the effort made into recording an entire alternate cut of the movie in the Comanche language. Sadly, I didn't get the chance to watch this cut, as I couldn't find it until after watching, but just having this option available speaks volumes of how passionate the filmmakers are of this movie. Getting back to the movie itself, its world is further enhanced by its cinematography, which is absolutely breathtaking. There are so many amazing shots of mountains, forests, lakes, and plains, all with barely a human in sight. The scenery elevates the dread that characters experience in their isolation as they're picked off by the predator, and further emphasizes just how dangerous the movie's world truly is. The audio in this movie is some of the best I've heard in an action flick this year. Of course, the predator's classic clicking noise is prominent throughout the movie, but even little things like grass rustling and twigs breaking turn otherwise normal scenes into harrowing cat and mouse scenarios, and the tense soundtrack amplifies the mood even more when it switches from suspense to action. With how stunning this movie is on a technical level, I can only imagine how much more immersive it would be if it was available to watch in theaters as opposed to streaming. I feel like there's something about this kind of experience that's lost when watching on a normal TV setup, but the movie still looks and sounds fantastic regardless. There's even a little bit of social commentary thrown in about the effects of overhunting and how humanity impacts the environment. The movie doesn't get too preachy in the subject area and mostly focuses on being a pure predator experience, but it's nice that the symbolism is there for those who want to look for it. The only complaint I can think of regarding this movie is that my suspension of disbelief tended to waver at times during the final act. Naru gets hurt quite a bit during her journey, and she never feels the effects of her injuries. She receives an incredible degree of physical punishment, even getting her foot caught in a bear trap, and yet she continues on like nothing happened. It's also weird that the movie doesn't make an effort to show her training for combat as it does with the rest of her skills. She practically becomes Black Widow from the Marvel movies with how much she maneuvers around others. It would make more sense if she didn't have these skills, since she wasn't formally trained as a warrior, so seeing her flip and twist all over the screen really threw me for a loop. This being said, I don't think this movie is setting out to promote a woke agenda like what a lot of people are saying online about it. Naru repeatedly proves that she learns from her mistakes and that she has to be smarter about taking on the predator rather than just going toe-to-toe with it. I just think that her combat prowess, especially with her supposed injuries, needed a bit more explanation. Overall, Prey is a stellar action movie that is a blast from beginning to end and is easily the best Predator movie in decades. If you like action movies and you consider yourself a fan of the classics, especially Predator, definitely check this one out. It is awesome. It sticks to its guns as a Predator movie, but also brings just enough new material to keep it fresh and exciting, and unquestionably succeeds on both fronts. I'm happy to see this franchise finally get the return to form it deserves, and with how well this turned out, I hope this inspires more studios to resurrect other series like these in the future. What did you think about this movie? Do you think it's a worthy entry in the series, or did you notice other details behind it that I didn't mention? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of Prey. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the Turkish romantic drama, Heart Song. Bye bye!